Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today. Let's do it. What's your scariest walking home alone at night stories? Please remember to like, share, hype, listen and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. I wasn't alone, but me and my friend were out walking one night when we were like 15, and this dude pulls up in the most suspicious way possible in a white van and asks if we needed a ride, and of course we spared our anuses and said no. Then the next night, him and his friend in a similar white van started circling the block where we were sitting down and eating some food we get from the nearby convenience store. And we decided to go back inside the store for a minute in hopes that they would leave after not seeing us. And they did not leave. Then, the night after that, they pulled up next to us together, hella slowly, pulled over, and started chasing us. But we got away and called 911 on those fuckers. A week or so later, they were both arrested for human trafficking and a bunch of other crimes. They're both locked up for like 60 years or some shit. I'll try to find the article, but I haven't had any luck in doing so any other time I've told this story. I was the one who scared someone. After a night out with friends, I was getting the last train home, 11 p.m. It was a short journey, 2 stops, at around 10 minutes total. Well, I get off the train onto the small, quiet, empty village train station, which is only lit by the downward-facing lights on top of a tall pole. A woman, young female, gets off the train further up the platform closer to the exit. She exits, and I exit about 30 seconds later. The road we walk onto has the same lights for about 100 yards, then the pathway continues into the pitch black of night. Eventually, you get to the village, which you can see as the train station is about a mile away uphill, so walking back, you can see the village and the lit-up pavement. Anyway, I see her walking under the lights and her silhouette figure keeps turning around and looking at me. I just continue walking, thinking, what the f***? She turns her head a few more times and then nopes away from me and sprints into the darkness where I, in a split second, suddenly can't see her anymore. I'm rather freaked out, but I'm a tad tipsy, so just thought, I carried on, and eventually got to where I could see the village and pavement, bearing in mind, it was probably about 30 seconds after she disappeared, and I couldn't see her at all. I'm sorry, whoever you were. I didn't mean to come across as a serial killer artist. I was just walking home. Also, I still think she hid somewhere in the darkness, and I probably walked past her hiding up. I was deployed to Kirkuk Air Base, Iraq, 2003. Our HQ was on the opposite side of the base from Tent City, and my boss had our vehicle. I decided to walk back to Tent City in the dark. There were no streetlights, and all I had was a flashlight. As I got to the darkest part of the base, I heard about a dozen dogs growling and barking just outside of the shine of my flashlight. There were feral dogs all around that had been loosed when the war started. They roamed in packs looking for anything they could eat. Feral dogs also kill for the thrill without eating their prey. I was surrounded, and the only thing keeping them at bay was the light from my flashlight, which was starting to flicker. I had an M9 handgun, one in the chamber and the safety off ready to go. 3 army trucks drove past me, and in their headlights, I saw a pack around me. Glowing eyes, teeth bared, and hair standing. As the trucks passed and their lights went away, the dogs would lunge toward me. My eyes were taking too long to adjust, and I had to rely on hearing them make rushes and retreats as they snapped their teeth. They followed me for about a quarter mile until I reached the light of the tent city. I never went anywhere unlit after that, and wore my sidearm every day until I redeployed. I have 2. I grew up in rural Maine. My girlfriend lived on my road, and I'd sneak out occasionally to go up there, come back before morning. A true covert mission. Anyway, I was running home one night and heard some noise up ahead in the pitch black darkness. I was immediately stopped in my tracks and pulled out my flip phone and turned on the shitty flashlight setting. They bought me about 1 foot of visibility. I held it out anyway, and slowly marched forward in fear of what the noise was. Next thing I know, I hear many hooves clattering off the tar in front and beside me, and felt the rush of wind of these animals, likely deer, running by me. I could hear them snorting and grunting as well. As soon as they passed, I ran on my tiptoes all the way home, scared shitless. The second is a little more difficult to explain. I was summertime around 3 a.m. or so in a similar situation as described above. I was listening to a metal band, the Black Dahlia Murder. I'm running home, and all of a sudden the bass got extremely intense, more so than I'd heard it previously. I tear the headphones off my head and stand there in awe. At my 2 to 3 o'clock is an aircraft of some kind rising from the trees. My hair was standing up, and my jaw dropped. It slowly moved my way over the road in front of me, just over the tree line. It was gray and larger than any aircraft I'd ever seen. It was so close that I could see tiny light beacons all over it, and could make out structure and indentations in it. Again, I tried photographing it with my shitty flip phone, but alas, only blackness. Then I called several friends who lived in the area so they could confirm what I'd seen. Nobody picked up their phone. Next thing I know, the aircraft shot out toward the sky in an arc, got smaller and smaller and disappeared. Now fear set in. What was that? Why did it seemingly land here? I hightailed it home and woke up my mother, father, and younger brother. There was a thick contrail over the tree line, and it followed upward toward the sky. They all got to see it. To this day, I have no idea what I saw, but it was epic. I live in a town that had a fair bit of gang activity. I'm also a big soccer player. There happens to be an indoor soccer place a few blocks from my house. A few friends and I booked it from 9 to 11 p.m. and I walked over wearing my red Arsenal jacket. I'm a huge Arsenal fan. On my way back, still wearing my red jacket, a packed car pulls up next to me and the windows roll down. They're peppering me with questions. You bang, bro? You a blood, bro? Since when did the Bloods take white boys? I kept my head down and kept walking. They drive slowly by me, continuing to ask questions. Eventually, I looked this guy in the face and said, "Look at me. Does it look like I bang?" I'm a 5'5", 115-pound white kid. Then they drove away. I thought they were maybe in a rival gang and I was going to be an unfortunate casualty of a war I know nothing about. Walking home on a business trip from buying shampoo at a nearish Walgreens, I was jet-lagged and wanted only to get back to my corporate apartment. A guy passed me, walking the other way. Seemed totally normal, but a few seconds later something made me turn around. The guy had switched directions and was now following me. I must have heard something change in his footsteps. I had sneakers on, and I'm fairly athletic, so I just took off running and removed myself down and then across the big street we were next to. It was weird, but I don't think I felt a lot of fear, just, whoop, time to go now. The guy didn't look like a fast runner, and as far as I can tell, he didn't chase me. It was still creepy, though. Hey guys, sorry I'm multitasking today. I'm at my full-time job, but I'm walking to an inspection now, but just wanted to wish you all an early happy Thanksgiving if you don't hear tomorrow's message, if you're reveling or celebrating with friends or family. I'm thankful for each and every one of you. I'll probably elaborate a bit more tomorrow, but I hope all is well and that you guys have a blessed holiday season and rest of your year. Thanks for being here, and here's to many more. Take care. I was someone else's once. Told this story before on Reddit, but not on this account. I went to college in a wooded area. I would say rural because it was a college town, population over 100,000. My senior year, I lived off of campus. There was a well-trafficked trail that literally started at my house and ended at the college grounds. So as long as it wasn't dark out, I walked the trail. I would often see other students running or people walking their pooches on the first half of the trail, which was lightly wooded and paved. The second half was usually quiet. It was densely wooded, steeply sloped on either side, and the other half of the trail looped back. So there wasn't really a good reason to walk down that far, unless you lived on the other side of the trail. So, One night, I'm walking home, and I have to pee so friggin' bad I clenched my way through the first half of the trail and think I should be clear to duck off to the side of the second half. I know a long straight section of trail is coming up, or I could see or hear people coming from either direction. 5 minutes later, I realize I'm not going to make it. I need to duck off now. I decided I needed to get a little far from the trail, obviously. It's not going to be the upward side of the hill, and put myself on stage. So I try to carefully pick my way down the hill to find a rocky outcrop or a tree large enough to hide my girth from prying eyes, instead of carefully picking my way down. I slip into a patch of gravel and proceed to Aspagan about 30 feet down the hill. I was uninjured, and had managed not to piss myself. On the upside, the trail is now completely out of view, and I'm at the bank of the gorge that ran next to the trail. Perfect. I take a leak and turn around to climb, but soon realize it's going to be better to go around the gravel and climb up somewhere else. I know, this is how most Lost in the Woods stories start, but I knew I was only a few hundred yards from residences, and the gorge and the trail run parallel. No big deal. Just follow the gorge until I climb back up. It is starting to get dark, though, and in the winter in upstate New York, dusk is a short affair. I walk about 50 feet and come to an area that looks easy to climb, lots of large saplings to haul myself up. I don't see the trail ahead, but I can see a wooden post through a thick shrubbery up ahead, a trail marker. I wind my way up to it and stop at the shrubbery for a second. I'll get a little scraped up, but I don't want to get back down the hill to find another way up, so I put my bag in front of my face, grabbed the trail marker with my left hand, and pulled my way through that shrub, letting out a mighty, "You bush," as I emerge. I hear a very small eep to my left and turn just in time to see a girl in a cross-country uniform from the local high school about to run headlong into me. I move as quickly as I can, but she clips me on the shoulder, and we both stumble off balance. She regains her expertly without missing a stride, and breaks from a jog to a full sprint. I, meanwhile, fall into the shrub, but manage to get back up pretty quickly. I don't know what to do. She's still in eyesight, so I just yell, "Wait!" because I can't think of anything else. And it immediately dawns on me that the worst possible thing to yell. She doesn't even look back, just runs faster. I spend about a week fully expecting to be picked up by the cops and knowing that my explanation sounded ludicrous. I'm sure that girl was looking over her shoulder for a lot longer. If you're reading this, frightened cross-country girl, I'm sorry, and I hope you're well. 6'6", 300-pound guy. Don't have too many people trying to mess with me. However, I'm pretty darn afraid of the dark. I was walking up my private drive to my house, having just taken the garage and garbage cans down to the curb. I hear some huffing sounds nearby in front of me. I couldn't tell exactly where it was, nearly pitch black out. I freeze and whip out my phone. My phone has a feature where if I shake it twice, the flashlight turns on. So I draw my phone and activate it, almost kind of like how a Jedi draws a lightsaber. There's this frickin' huge buck deer probably about 15 feet away from me, looking me straight in the eyes. It probably could have gorged me if it wanted to, but I didn't want to give it that chance, so I booked it the 300 or so feet back to the house in record time. Not that scary, but it was terrifying for me at the time, lol. I was letting my dog out one last time for the night. I lived on Capitol Hill in the heart of the city. As I looked around, I saw a stray dog across the street. No big deal. I've seen stray dogs before. I made some gentle noises at it, hoping I could get close and read its color for an owner. After about 30 seconds, it looked up at me and moved closer toward the street, into the light of a street lamp. I was suddenly quite confused because it was bigger than I originally thought it was. I could see it had a sloped back, with its neck angled way further down to its body than was normal. And then I saw dark spots covering its fur. Chills overtook my body, and I realized that a hyena stared at me less than 15 feet away. I slowly edged backwards toward my apartment building and rushed inside. The scariest part? The next day, I overheard my next-door neighbor telling her friends the exact same story: a hyena roaming the streets of Capitol Hill. I was still living in the same crappy area. No designated parking at my apartment, or basically any apartment in that area, so finding street parking was a nightmare. I came home around 3 a.m. that night and was lucky to find parking on a street near my apartment. It was a street lined with little crappy low-rent businesses that all closed at 5 p.m., so the entire street was empty. Spooky that time of night. I'd been having trouble with my car. Basically, if I didn't start it just right with the first try, then it wouldn't start, and I'd have to wait at least 30 minutes before I could successfully try it again. So I park, step out of my car, and start down this empty street when I spot a man about half a block away walking toward me. He looked out of place in my neighborhood. He was a middle-aged, light-skinned black man about 6'2", wearing a polo shirt, khaki shorts, and a ball cap. He looked like he had stepped off the golf course, except that he was disheveled and stumbling slightly. So, out of precaution, I started to cross the street, but he started to cross in the middle of the street following me. This immediately alarmed me. I turned around and headed back to my car. He was close enough this point that if he had run, he could have caught me before I made it. I hopped in my car, locked the doors. I could see him in my rearview mirror approaching the back of the car. In my haste to get away from him, I started my car too fast, and it lurched to the side and shut off. So now I'm trapped in the car in an absolutely empty street at 3 in the morning. The man started beating on the windows, demanding that I come out. Even though I had been out all day and night, I thankfully still had enough battery on my phone to call 911 and explain my situation while the man beat on the car windows. Within like 2 minutes of me giving them my location, a police helicopter flew overhead with a spotlight shining on my car and then began searching up and down all the nearby streets. Like 30 seconds later, a police car speeds up beside me and the cop asks where the guy went. Now, all of this is odd because I live in LA. And over the years, I've reported worse things than this, and the 911 dispatcher always seems disinterested in even sending a cop just to check it out. So this response alarmed me. My guess is that this was someone they were already looking for. I'm not sure what he did, but it must have been really serious for that type of response. I mean, I wasn't crying on the phone, and I didn't say he had weapons or anything, or I was in imminent danger. I basically reported it as, "This crazy guy is banging on my windows," etc. I was very calm, but the next day I was telling a female neighbor about it, and she said she and her friend had run into that same guy earlier that night, like 7 p.m., and she had threatened to spray him with mace and call the cops. A few years back, a friend and I were driving back to town from another friend's rural house. We decided to pull off the highway and roll a double. We were parked on an access road off the gravel road leading from the highway. I didn't notice the bottom or the beater van driving toward us until he was almost right on top of us. I saw how slow they were going, but told my buddy they were probably not going to stop. He parks in a way that pretty much blocks us, and these two goons come up to each window. I rolled down my window and asked what the and they proceeded to give us a big speak about how many trespassers they have around here and blah blah, trying to give us shit. They demanded our wallets and our weed and anything else we might have, or they'll knock our heads in and check for themselves. My buddy started to yell at these guys and shit got really heated. I was thinking we were going to have a fight, these Neanderthals, who were much bigger than us. I remember debating trying to throw my door open and get him with the crotch. I ended up just throwing it in drive and ditch popping my way out of there. They chased after us, tried to lose them, and when we passed them going the opposite way on the highway, they Spanish shitty and screamed after us. They chased us to the outskirts of town at about 90 miles an hour. I've got two. First one was when I had to park around the corner from my house for a few years. Quarter-mile walk. once it was very late, almost midnight probably. There was a guy walking in front of me. It's hard to explain, but very quickly, very smoothly, he does a turn around a big potted plant on the corner and is suddenly behind me, matching my speed. Now I'm a hefty guy, so I'm not too worried, but I'm not stupid. I was only 30 feet from my front door that I'd have to stop, unlock, and then I'm alone in my building. Luckily, there were 2 people at the bus stop across the street, so I made a beeline for them. As soon as I stepped into the street toward people, the guy behind me peels off. I waited till he was definitely gone, then went upstairs. Second time was when I was between cars and decided I would walk home instead of taking the bus. It probably had something to do with me getting out so late. The buses weren't running anymore. It was like a 6-mile walk. I took a detour down a side street for safety reasons. The main road I was following was curvy and had no sidewalks for a 2-mile stretch. So I found myself on a dead silent road, which also had no sidewalks but no cars, while the trees formed a canopy. There were only 2 streetlights for the entire mile and a half. It was almost 1 a.m. by this point, and trees pretty much form a wall right up to the street for most of it. I had my phone in one hand, it was the only way I could see it all, and my pocket knife in the other. I kept hearing things moving behind the trees. It was very creepy. My girlfriend was walking home from the train alone at night. She called me on the phone to talk to me, using that old trick girls used to keep creeps away. All of a sudden, I hear a man yell her scream, and the phone hang up. So now I'm sitting in my room 100 miles away, trying to decide what to do. Do I call the police in her city? I think I know about where she was between the train and her apartment. Do I get in my car and start driving? Is she already dead? Luckily, she called back. Some guy had run up behind her, screamed in her ear, then kept running. She dropped her phone when it happened and it hung up. Luckily, everything was okay. And that's why the be on your cell phone while walking alone at night trick doesn't always work. I was walking home from a friend's apartment in New York City, and it was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning, and the area I was walking in was super quiet. I was waiting for a light to turn to cross the street, and a man comes up next to me with a takeout container in a hand and taps me on the shoulder. He tapped me on the shoulder, and I was fully panicking, and he said, "Do you want to buy some Coke?" and opened up the takeout container that was overflowing with white powder that was clearly not cocaine. I said no. The light turned. I crossed the street, and he followed like 20 feet behind me for around 7 blocks. I called my friend who I lived with and told them where I was because I was genuinely so scared. When I was 14, I babysat the lady across the street. She was a baby bartender, so she oftentimes didn't get home until 3 or 4 a.m. One night she got home around 3:30. I was really thirsty and hungry, so I figured I would walk down to the 24-hour store, get a pop and chips, and go home and back to bed. I've done this lots of times before without any issue. The store was less than a block away. On this night, there were a couple guys I've never seen before sitting outside drinking. They saw me come by and start the cat calls, blocking my way and trying to touch me. I don't know how I escaped, but I did. Ran to the store, got my stuff, and ran home. I went up to my apartment and didn't even turn in the living room because you could see their apartment from my living room and didn't want them knowing where I live. I'm not sure if they saw me enter the building, so I not only locked my door, but I moved heavy stuff around it. After that, I refused to babysit for that lady again. Part of it was I didn't want to walk across the street that late at night, and part of it was always tried to screw me on payments. Wasn't a walk home, but a friend and I went to a majestic-looking woody area when the sun was barely setting. There was an open but huge area with a path and trees on the outer edge. The area had tall grass in the center, so it was hard to see the opposite side. We took a path that took us through the ring of trees into an identical-looking field. We decided to move further and find another identical field. It was dark, and we decided to head back. bad news was our phone batteries was running low. It's all cool. I think I remember the path. But wait, my friend decides to go some other way. Turns out to be correct. And at this point, I realize I've got no idea where we are going. He leads the way, takes an unfamiliar route, and now we're both lost. It's pitch black, and we haven't come across any open fields. We're like in the most dense wooded area. I start to get scared and turn back while he continues on ahead. I keep moving till I try and cross this river. The river had huge boulders we hopped across, but the rocks were deep in water now. I turn around and flip shit. I had my phone light on, walked 2 steps, and turned that motherfucker off immediately. I call him, and he says he's lost too, but kept walking anyway. I do too, and after crossing a steep hill and an eerie split path, I find myself coming to an open field, thank God. But guess what? It's no field I'm aware of, it's a fucking cornfield. I've seen enough, and at this point, I was on the verge of breaking down. I knew I had to keep walking and gasped out for quiet. I managed my way to a lit barn with a street on the side of it. I dipped out of the cornfield straight into the road. It was a huge relief, but the journey wasn't over. I happened to be 3 miles away from where I parked, and my friend, who I drove, and whose parents were anal about him arriving home late, were nowhere to be found. Phone's officially dead, and I decide to walk, no sidewalk, no lights, busy road, middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees, back. He managed to find his car and his way to it, and so do I. He and I start hysterically laughing, and now have a very interesting story to tell or share someday.